The moment a narcissist realizes they can't control you anymore, it shatters them. Not on the outside, but deep in the core of who they are. Because control isn't just what they want, it's their entire identity. No control means no power. No power means no purpose. At first they pretend not to notice. They tell themselves you'll come back, that you always do. But when you stop chasing, when you stop flinching, when you stop needing them, that's when they break. In this video, we're breaking down exactly what happens when you become too strong to manipulate, how the narcissist reacts, why they spiral, and how your silence becomes your greatest power. Let's get into it. 1. The illusion of control. The moment a narcissist realizes you don't need them is the moment their entire identity begins to collapse. Not because you fought them, not because you exposed them, but because you stopped reacting. You see, control isn't just a habit for them. It's who they are. They don't just crave influence. They depend on it, like oxygen. Their identity is built on your compliance, on you doubting yourself, on you needing their approval just to feel whole. And when that cycle breaks, when you stand up, stay calm, and walk away without looking back, they don't see strength, they see danger. Because if you can survive without them, who else might? And if you stop playing the role they wrote for you, what does that say about their power? Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But the narcissist builds their life in reverse. They try to control outside events, people, perception, attention, because inside they're a mess. No anchor, no stillness, no self. Their confidence is performative, their charm, a mask, their superiority, a house of cards, stacked by your reactions. I remember a friend I walked away from years ago. He always had to win the conversation, always had a way of making you feel small unless you needed him. I didn't argue when I left. I didn't explain. I just stopped playing the game. And at first, he told people I was just being emotional, that I'd be back. Because in his world, people don't leave him. Not really. But when I didn't come back, he didn't get angry. He got scared. Because in that silence, he had to face something he'd avoided his whole life. He wasn't in control. This dynamic reminds me of Nelson Mandela. The man spent 27 years in prison. He was isolated, humiliated, and stripped of every external freedom. But somehow his spirit remained intact. He didn't come out of prison bitter or broken. He came out grounded, poised, purposeful. Because while they controlled his body, they could never touch his mind. That's Stoicism in action. Epictetus was a slave. Mandela was a prisoner. But both understood the same core truth. Your freedom begins in the mind. Epictetus said, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. That's what Stoicism is about, internal control. And that's exactly what breaks the narcissist's grip. Not rage, not revenge, just calm clarity. When you stop reacting, you starve the illusion they've been feeding off for years. Their control was never real. It only lived in your response. And when you take that back, you become something they can't manipulate. You become untouchable. But don't think they'll go quietly. Because what happens next is where the real test begins. They'll panic, they'll lash out, they'll shift tactics fast. And if you're not ready, they'll drag you right back in. Stay with me, because in part 2, we're going to talk about what happens when you stop flinching and the mask starts to slip. 2. The shift. When you don't flinch. There's a moment the narcissist doesn't expect. It's not when you yell back. It's not when you call them out or confront them with everything they've done. It's when you stop reacting. No yelling, no arguing, no explaining. You just stop. You don't flinch. You don't bite. You stand still, calm, steady, quiet. And that's when the panic sets in. Up until now, they thought they still had you. They assumed your silence was temporary, that you were just angry, emotional, going through a phase. They believed, in their mind, that once the dust settled, you'd come crawling back like everyone else did. But then, you don't. You see, for a narcissist, losing control of you isn't just an inconvenience. It's an identity crisis. Because their entire sense of self is built on the reactions of others, especially yours. When you no longer respond, you don't just take away their control, you take away their reflection. And when they can't see themselves through you, they begin to unravel. Seneca once wrote, "As is a tale, so is life. Not how long it is, but how good it is what matters." This moment, this refusal to react, it's the turning point. Not how long you were caught in their game, but how well you walk away from it now. Here's the thing, they won't show you the panic. Not right away. At first they'll pretend they don't care, that you never really mattered. They'll post things online, say things to mutual friends, put on a performance like they've moved on, like they're thriving without you. But behind the curtain, they're scrambling, they're watching, testing, waiting to see if you'll break, if you'll flinch, if you'll chase them just one more time. And when you don't, that's when everything changes. Suddenly they shift tactics. The charm disappears. The coldness sets in. What once looked like love turns into cruelty. One moment they say they miss you. The next they say you'll regret everything. They throw out bait, guilt trips, backhanded comments, dramatic stories, just to get a reaction. This reminds me of Mike Tyson in his prime. Tyson wasn't just a physical fighter, he was a psychological one. He'd stare down his opponent before the fight even started. And if they flinched, even for a second, he knew he'd already won. Narcissists operate the same way. They provoke just to see if you'll twitch. If they can still make you feel anything, anger, fear, guilt, then they believe they still own a part of you. But when you don't flinch, when you remain grounded and unshaken, that's when their mask starts to slip. That's when they begin to lose it. Because now they're staring at someone they don't recognize. You're not the person who used to justify, explain, or beg. You're not the person who walked on eggshells just to keep the peace. You've changed, you've grown, and they can't reach you anymore. That's the shift. The moment you reclaim yourself. When you stop reacting, you stop feeding the illusion. And suddenly they're forced to confront a truth they've always feared. The power they thought they had over you was never real. It only existed because you gave it to them. So when they push, when they prod, when they bait you into the old game, don't take the bait. Don't explain. Don't defend. Don't prove anything. Stillness is strength, because if you can remain at peace while they spiral in desperation, you've already won. And trust me, they know it. In part 3, we'll talk about what they do next, when the silence drives them to desperation, and the mind games begin. 3. The mind games begin. Once you stop flinching, once your silence holds, that's when the real games begin. The narcissist has already tried charm, then cruelty, then guilt. None of it worked. You didn't break. You didn't respond. You didn't come crawling back. Now they panic in a different way. Not loud, not dramatic, but calculated. If they can't control your actions, they'll try something more dangerous. Controlling your mind. This is where the mental warfare begins. They start rewriting the story, not just for others, but for you. They distort the truth. They twist the past. They paint themselves as the victim and you as the aggressor. It's not about facts. It's about confusion. Because if they can confuse you, they can still control you. They'll say things like, "I always did everything for you," or "You never appreciated me," or the classic, "I don't even know what I did wrong." These lines might sound sad, even reflective, but they're not. They're loaded with manipulation. Each word is a carefully placed hook, meant to pull you back into doubt, because if they can't own you physically, they'll try to rent space in your head. Marcus Aurelius warned us, if you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your own judgment about it. The Stoics understood this. The battle isn't out there, it's in your perception. And right now, your perception is under attack. I've been in that fog myself. After cutting ties with someone toxic, I started to second-guess my own memory, not because they were right, but because they repeated their version of events so many times with such confidence that I started wondering, did I exaggerate? Was it really that bad? That's how it works, not through force, but repetition, not through logic, but emotion. They don't need you to return. They just need you to hesitate, to soften, to question your own truth. And the moment you do, they see an opening. That's when they escalate. They'll talk to your friends, to your family, to anyone who will listen. They'll seed doubts, half-truths and lies. Always subtle, always just believable enough to make people wonder. They'll say they're worried about you. They'll cry in front of others. They'll play the wounded soul while quietly turning people against you. And here's where it gets dangerous. If you try to defend yourself, you lose. If you explain your side, they twist it. If you correct the narrative, they accuse you of being defensive or unstable. You're not in a fair fight. You're in a trap designed to wear you down. That's why Stoicism isn't about being passive. It's about discipline. It's about choosing where your energy goes and where it doesn't. You don't argue with liars. You don't plead with manipulators. You don't explain reality to someone who's committed to fiction. Because the moment you do, you're back in their game. And that's exactly what they want. What they fear isn't anger, it's indifference. Indifference means they can't reach you. Indifference means their words fall flat. Indifference means you've detached from the illusion, and they no longer matter. You reclaim your mind by holding to your truth, even when they try to twist it. You protect your peace by refusing to clarify what doesn't need explaining. You defend your freedom by understanding that silence isn't weakness, it's power. Not passivity, not fear, but stoic strength in its purest form. And when they realize their manipulation doesn't work, when their stories fall flat, and their words no longer shape your world, they begin to fall apart. In Part 4, we'll go deeper into what happens when their mind games fail, and they start reaching for destruction. 4. The provocation and escalation. When the mind games no longer work, when the guilt, the charm, the confusion all fall flat, that's when the narcissist shows their final card: destruction. You've stopped reacting. You're no longer chasing. You've cut the strings they used to pull, and now, stripped of influence, they move to a darker place. Because for them, if they can't control you, they'll try to destroy you. This is not always dramatic at first. Sometimes it starts quietly. Small jabs, subtle sabotage, but it's deliberate. They begin targeting the parts of your life that still matter: your relationships, your reputation, your peace. Because if they can't get back in, they'll try to burn everything around you. You may hear things secondhand: a rumor, a passive-aggressive comment passed through a mutual friend, stories that twist the truth just enough to hurt you but protect them from blame. The goal isn't to win you back anymore. The goal is to punish you for walking away, and the people around you, that's their new battlefield. They might tell others you were unstable, that you were cruel, that you changed. They'll play the victim, spinning a tale where they did everything right and you simply snapped. Some will believe it, especially those who don't know you well. Narcissists are skilled performers, and pain is their most convincing disguise. But here's the Stoic truth: you don't need everyone to see your side. Epictetus said, "If evil be spoken of you and it be true, correct yourself. If it be a lie, laugh at it." A wise man doesn't chase gossip. He doesn't beg to be understood. He stands tall in silence and lets time sort the rest. The temptation to defend yourself will be strong, to tell your story, to fight back. But here's the trap. Every second you spend reacting to their lies is energy they've taken from you. Every time you explain yourself to someone who's already sided with them, you reinforce the illusion that you need approval. You don't. Let your actions speak. Let your consistency speak. Let your peace speak. And understand this. If the narcissist still has any access to your life, they may try to sabotage it directly. If they know people close to you, they may try to turn them against you. If they have access to your work, they may interfere. If you share legal ties, like a custody agreement or financial connection, they might use it to cause chaos, not because they want a resolution, but because they want a reaction. To them, even negative attention is better than none. If they can't make you love them, they'll settle for making you hurt. That's why clarity is your greatest weapon. You need to be clear on who you are, clear on what happened, clear on what you will and will not tolerate. Because when you're clear, their chaos can't find a place to land. This is where most people slip. They underestimate the lengths a narcissist will go to when they're no longer in control. They think it's over once they walk away. It's not. It ends when you stop responding, not just in words, but in emotion. When you stop trying to fix the narrative. When you stop hoping they'll one day get it. They won't. What they fear isn't your anger. What they fear is your peace, your detachment, your ability to walk away, build something better, and never look back. That's the kind of power they can't fake, the kind they can't destroy, the kind they never had. In part 5, we'll go even deeper into how to protect your mind and your future when the narcissist tries to rewrite history itself. Because yes, they'll try that too. 5. Rewriting history. When destruction doesn't break you, when your silence holds, when your peace holds, the narcissist tries one last route back into your life. They rewrite the past, not just the story they tell others, but the story they try to feed you. You see, if they can't control your present, they'll try to distort your memory. Because memory shapes identity, and if they can bend your version of the past, they can still influence your choices in the future. They'll say things like, "I never said that," when you know they did. Or, "You're remembering it wrong, even though you lived it." They'll insist you're exaggerating, that you were too sensitive, that they were only trying to help. Little by little, they chip away at your certainty, not to tell the truth, but to plant doubt. Because doubt, for them, is just another way back in. It's gaslighting in its purest form, not just denying what happened, but trying to rewrite your entire experience so you start questioning your own reality. And if they can get you to question that, they believe they can still influence your future decisions. This is why Stoic clarity is so important. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake, I will gladly change, but I must be convinced, not coerced." That's the line. You are always open to truth, but not manipulation. You don't reject facts, but you refuse to surrender your reality to someone who built theirs on illusion. And here's where it gets even more subtle. They don't always do this through arguments. Sometimes it comes through nostalgia. They'll say, "We had so many good times though, didn't we? Or it wasn't all bad, right?" And that's where the hook is hidden. They're not inviting you to heal. They're inviting you to forget, to blur the pain, to soften your boundaries, to slip back into a version of the past that never really existed. This tactic is especially powerful if you're tired, worn down, still grieving the loss of what you hoped that relationship would be. That's when you're most vulnerable to revision. But here's the truth. Clarity isn't about holding on to bitterness. It's about holding on to truth. You're not choosing to be angry. You're choosing to remember clearly, so you don't fall for the same pattern again. I've seen people go back to narcissists not because they believed the lie, but because the lie was easier to live with than the grief of walking away. That's the trap. And I'll be honest, Stoic clarity isn't comfortable. It requires discipline. It means holding to your memory even when people call you cold or dramatic or unforgiving. It means walking away not just from the person, but from the story they're trying to rewrite. You may even have people around you who believe their version. That's okay, let them. The truth doesn't need everyone to believe it. It only needs you to stand in it. You don't owe anyone an explanation for protecting your peace. You don't need to justify remembering the pain accurately. You don't need to accept a version of history that was edited to suit someone else's ego. You simply say, I know what happened, I lived it, I've learned, and I'm done. And when you do that, when you anchor yourself in what you know is real, you take away their final tool, the last illusion. In part 6, we'll talk about what happens when you remain completely unshaken, and the narcissist, realizing you're truly gone, either implodes or vanishes. That's the endgame, and it's closer than you think. 6. The endgame. This is it, the final act. After the charm fades, after the guilt trips collapse, after the lies stop working and the stories lose their grip, there's nothing left but silence. Yours. And it terrifies them. When a narcissist realizes you're truly gone, not just physically but emotionally and mentally, something inside them breaks. Because for all their arrogance, all their control, all their manipulation, they never believed you'd actually walk away for good. Deep down, they were convinced you'd always come back, that you still needed something from them. Closure, approval, attention, anything, but you don't. And now they're staring into the one thing they fear most, irrelevance. This is when they make their final move. It usually goes one of two ways. Some will implode. You'll see the meltdown, anger, desperation, wild accusations. They'll lash out at you or anyone around you trying to spark chaos, not because they think it will bring you back, but because if they can't have peace, they don't want you to have it either. Others will vanish, they'll disappear completely, not as a sign of growth, but as a retreat. They need a new audience now, a fresh supply, someone else to mirror the fantasy, because without someone to control, they start to fall apart. A narcissist without attention is like fire without oxygen. It doesn't burn out all at once, but it fades fast. Seneca said, "The greatest wealth is a poverty of desires." But narcissists have never tasted that kind of wealth. Their desire for control, validation, and praise is endless. It consumes them. And when they can't get it from you anymore, they spiral. Or they run. Either way, you've won. Not in a petty, vengeful way. This isn't about revenge. It's about freedom. It's about breaking the pattern that's held you down for too long. Because the real victory isn't in proving them wrong. It's in no longer needing to. The real victory is choosing clarity over chaos, peace over performance. The real victory is walking away and not looking back. I've seen people stuck for years, caught in cycles with toxic partners, manipulative bosses, and even family members who used guilt like a leash. And every time the pattern was the same: react, apologize, question, repeat. But the ones who got free, they didn't win by arguing harder, they won by no longer playing. They chose stillness, they chose boundaries, they chose to live in truth. And that's what you've done. So if the narcissist finally disappears, let them. If they lash out one last time, let them burn out on their own. Don't chase closure. Don't explain. Don't reopen a chapter you've already closed. You are not who you were when they met you. You are not the person who needs their approval. Not the one who bent over backward for peace. Not the one who mistook control for love. You've grown. You've healed. You've stepped into something stronger. You've stepped into yourself. And now, you're free. If you've made it to this point, you already know you're not the same person anymore. You've stopped reacting. You've stopped explaining. You've stopped needing their approval. That's a real strength. Quiet, unshakable, yours. Let them say what they want. Let them believe what they need. You're not going back. You've outgrown the story they tried to trap you in. So walk forward. Head high, no guilt, no drama, just peace. Because you're not who you were when they had control. And now, you're free.